Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. This is episode 20 of the podcast. Firstly, Easter has come and gone, so it would be remiss of me or neglectful of me not to mention it. We're not going to discuss the heavier themes of Easter, however. Today we're going to keep it nice and simple, and we're going to talk about the eggs, okay? We're going to stick with the eggs, people. We're going to stick with the eggs today. So here are 6 of my favorite egg idioms or expressions. Number 1, to be a good egg. So we use this to describe someone who is genuinely kind, down to earth, kind of modest or humble. For example, Paul is a good egg. He'll always go the extra mile to help you out. So you hear it a lot in Ireland. When I was a teenager and had friends over to visit the house, my parents might say, "That lad Mark, he's a good egg. He's a nice person." The opposite, a bad egg or a rotten egg, describes someone negative or heading down the wrong path. Maybe someone who's moving towards delinquency or criminality. I'm not a big fan of that label because I like to think there's hope for everyone. But the saying or expression, it does exist. And you might hear it in a TV drama, for example. That kid's always been a bad egg. No respect for anyone. And number 2 is to egg someone on. To egg someone on to do something. So this means to encourage someone to do something, often with a hint or a little bit of peer pressure. So your friends trying to convince or persuade you to do something you might not have planned or intended to do. A personal example, when I lived in Korea, I joined some friends on a road trip and we ended up going bungee jumping. Not by plan. When we arrived, my friends egged me on. They said, "Come on, you can do it. It's going to be great." So I jumped and it was fantastic. It can apply in more negative situations too, where the pressure isn't so helpful. For example, at school, maybe if your friends egg you on to skip some classes, okay, that might be a little bit bad. So there might be peer pressure in the group and they might egg you on to skip or cut a couple of classes just to go and do something else instead of attending school. So yeah, it can be neutral, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But it can also be life-changing in a good way. So, for example, a few years ago when I lived in Galway, some friends egged me on to try cold water swimming in the sea. So sea swimming in November and December. And it was the best feeling. Freezing when you get in, but once you control your breathing and let your body settle, you feel incredible. So when you get out, you feel invincible, a little bit cold, but you feel invincible. So people can egg you on to do good things too, not only foolish or negative things. Number 3, to have egg on your face. To have egg on your face. So this means to feel embarrassed or foolish, usually because you were overly confident about something and turned out to be completely wrong. Okay. So, for example, when I was younger, I was a bit of a know-it-all. I thought I had all the answers and I really didn't. So this happened to me more than once when I was a younger man. A good example, I used to be very certain about who wrote certain songs. So I once strongly insisted that Sinead O'Connor wrote the song "Nothing Compares to You," the classic song from the 90s, only to find out the song was actually written by Prince. So I had egg on my face. I had been adamant that Sinead O'Connor wrote the song, and I was completely wrong. Okay. So that's what happens. You have egg on your face. It was a lesson learned that we should never be arrogant in our knowledge of things. Number 4, to put all your eggs in one basket. Okay, and we often hear the phrase or the warning, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So this classic phrase is all about diversifying your options or keeping your options open. In investing, it means not putting all of your money into one company or one area. In life, it applies to any big decision, like choosing your university. If you only apply to one university and don't get in, you're left in limbo. You have no plan B. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Keep your options open. And our penultimate expression is to walk on eggshells. And this means to be very careful not to upset anyone. So, for example, when my football team loses, the people around me tend to walk on eggshells. They know that I'm in a sulky mood or a sad mood, a little bit depressed, and choose their words carefully. We can use this again in more serious situations. So, for example, if your best friend is trying to get a new job and maybe they are applying to many different roles, but then they settle on one. They think, oh, I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket. I'm going to really try to get this one specific job. And maybe they make it to the short list, the final 2 candidates, but then they don't get the role. Okay, so if we imagine that they stopped working on all the other applications and they put all their eggs in one basket and focused on this particular job, then you might walk on eggshells around them because, they've missed out on this really great opportunity, but they've also kind of left themselves in limbo by stopping the application process for other jobs. So yeah, you would definitely walk on eggshells around them until maybe they made a joke and then, that might break the ice and you can reconnect, you can kind of have a more natural conversation with them. And the last one today, guys, is you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. Or you can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs. Progress requires sacrifice, and some mess is often made along the way. Like if we think of a new football manager arriving at a struggling club, usually they sell players, bring in some new ones, make mistakes, ruffle feathers, maybe create a little bit of tension in the situation or the environment. Some people won't be happy in the short term, but you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs. You can't perfect a team without creating some tension and changing some things. So it's all part of building something better. Sometimes you have to sacrifice some smaller things in order to arrive at perfection. So, in general, I suppose real teamwork doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't come together overnight. So you might need to air grievances, to have uncomfortable conversations and work through conflicting opinions before people shift from individual goals to shared ones, before you build a real culture of community and common purpose. So it can be messy at first, but that's how you get to have something that's worth having. You can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs. So guys, those were some of my favorite egg idioms, okay, just for the Easter period that we find ourselves in. I hope that you're well. I hope that you have a great week. I hope you've eaten a delicious Easter egg. And thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate the podcast. You can do so on Spotify by clicking on the No Pressure for English banner and just clicking 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever you think. All right. Maybe it will help us to reach some more people who are learning English and might find this content interesting. So guys, I wish you all the best. Have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Ciao. Ciao.